Hello, this morning I wanted to go over some book reviews, basically what I read this January. I do really value BookTube. I don't know that I have plans to really get into it that deeply. I did read a lot last year and I want to talk about the books that I read as the year goes along. So maybe one video a month about books, I think. So it's always difficult because everyone's taste is a little bit different. And even though I mainly prefer fantasy and sci fi, I can't say that that's all I read because in between those books, I like to have kind of a palate cleanser, I guess I would call it. So before I get started, the one thing I did want to do is show you my little space. I'm so excited about it. It's actually just, let me adjust my camera here. It's actually just a corner of my bedroom. I used a photo backdrop. I think they use it to hang cloths when they do photography or something. It's just a cheap one. You can order them. It's not the sturdiest thing. I've knocked it over a couple times, but like I live on an upper floor apartment, so absolutely I would definitely love a pretty bamboo or wooden like carved room divider, but that is not in the cards. I can't carry it, and they are usually pretty pricey, even at estate sales, and I'm a pro at thrifting at estate sales. So over here is my tarot reading area, which I think if you've seen my videos before, you've seen this area. I really love plants, and I love this like whimsical, catch-all kind of chaotic feel. It just makes my heart very happy. So, of course, I would love to have this done up in like a full dark academia vibe, maybe like a beautiful jewel tone paint and a gallery wall with interesting frames and stuff like that. But if I want to move out of here, that's kind of hard to undo. So for now, this is what we're going with, and honestly, it makes me happy every time I step into this spot. So let me show you the side that I'm on right now, which is a little book nook that I just recently made. So I'm trying not to show too much out the windows or anything like that, but yeah, I've just got plants over here, some doodads, just some costume jewelry I just hang up. If there's something that you like and you think is pretty and don't want to wear it, I think that's a fun thing to do. Hang it on like a hanger so that you see it when you pick out your clothes or, something like that. So yep, I've just got a backdrop, which is just a cheapy little tapestry, and then my tarot reading desk. I don't change up too much here because all the stuff I use is the same stuff all the time apart from the decks. I just change this, cloth as the year goes around. Got decks in here. I love this little desk. I got this from Aldi and it came in flat pack, so I was able to get it up to my apartment. Yep. And then if I turn over here, on this half of the backdrop, I just hung like a whatchamacallit, just some curtains that I'd been using elsewhere, and I just moved them over here. So it doesn't really match. There's kind of a divide, but I don't know, maybe that works out. Here's like the reading corner instead of the tarot reading spot. So I didn't go buy anything for this. I just moved around things that I had elsewhere. Like this little table was by a futon out in my living room, and then I had this cushy chair somewhere else. This I thought about going to get an ottoman, and then I realized, you know what, I already have a suitcase, a big soft throw pillow, and a blanket I can put over that. So, I mean, it is kind of like an ottoman with storage. So that's my footrest there. Over here these are books that I have yet to read. I know that's maybe kind of a lot, like it's a pretty full shelf. I'm a mood reader and I'm pretty honest with myself about what I want to read. So I like having a variety to go back and forth between fantasy or romance or mystery, thriller, that sort of thing. I have some regrets about the purchases that I've made. Maybe I'll make a video going over like the composition of my physical DBR and how I think that it helps me be consistent with my reading. So, the more I've learned about myself and about reading over the past year, my thoughts have changed about what I would pick up if I were at a store. But, generally I am happy having a bunch to choose from at a time when the urge strikes, right? And plus I buy used. So, I'll buy new if there's like a book I really want to read. Like this one here is The Strength of the Few, which is a newer book, and there's just the odds of me finding that at a used store are pretty low, but it's a series that I'm currently engaged in. So, but otherwise, if I'm buying used, you kind of get what you get when you get it, right? so so yeah, I mean, I could run to an actual bookstore and buy a new book every time I'm ready to start something new, but that doesn't work out the same way if you're buying used, I don't think. And then over here, I've got this little holder, and I've just got highlighters, these little gel pens, and they're just things that I can use in books without it bleeding through the page. Because I do like scribbling in books. I don't have any respect for keeping a book pristine, right? And then over here, these are books I've read recently. Generally, the Dungeon Crawler, I just have the whole series out because I wasn't sure if I would need to reread before I read the newer ones coming out, but I don't think that I will. Up at the top here is actually a book club book, so I haven't gotten to that one yet. I'll save it for the end of the month. But yeah, I kind of actually like having this shelf like this where it is just books I've read recently, because I don't know, it's kind of fun to watch it fill up over the year. I really enjoyed doing that last year. So I think I might keep it like that even going forward. The rest of my books are all in boxes because I do kind of hope to move at some point. But who knows, it might happen, it might not. Up here, I've got bookmarks. It's just a fun little craft project. I had some spare, like, costume beads, like just a jar of them, and I took apart some costume jewelry that I'd gotten in, like, a big messy bag at the thrift store a long time ago, and, like, different pendants and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed making these. It was a really fun day. I think I had maybe some music playing on in the background, but I didn't scroll or anything that day. So it's always good to do something with your hands, I think, even if it's not that fancy or that good, you know, right? Like, I'm not an artiste. I definitely had fun doing this. But yeah, so that's the setup, and I've got the little arm there to hold my phone when I record, that light if I need some extra. And let's see how this goes. Okay, so the only problem with this format with not showing my face is that it can be kind of visually uninteresting. But I don't know about you. A lot of times when I use YouTube, I'm doing chores or going out for a walk or on a drive or something like that. So hopefully you don't mind that. There's space for Kat to join us, but I think she's very probably busy licking her butthole somewhere else, so maybe one day she will deign to join us. So, all right. I'm just going to go through things kind of chronologically, and I won't have any spoilers except for the last book I talk about, because I don't respect that book at all. It's not a great book. It also came out a while ago. And I just kind of want to trash talk a bit. So the Sarah J. Maas book, A Court of Silver Flames, I'm going to have spoilers for that probably. Okay, so the first one that I read was The Seven and a Half Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. This one I actually got from my library. They have a little shelf near the entrance where, you know, just for a couple bucks, they sell books that they don't need any more stock of. And I picked it up because I had heard of it and the concept sounded really intriguing. It's basically a murder mystery, a locked room murder mystery, essentially, because everyone's at this one estate, and there's kind of some mystical going-ons because a person wakes up every morning as a different resident at the house and has to gather clues while in those various hosts to solve the murder by the end of the book. And of course, that concept was very interesting to me. I did notice that the reviews on it were kind of low, and that the reviews kind of were like, I don't really know if it was worth it. I think I picked it up because it was so cheap, but I might know in the future a little better to just go ahead and pass on that sort of thing if if I'm not sure of it. It's not that I fully disliked it, just that if I could go back in time, I probably would have read a different book instead. The concept, again, I found very interesting. And because of what the person was doing, jumping around between these different hosts, I actually found the the idea of, thinking about the difference between, you yourself, like who you are at your core as a person, your physical body and how that affects you, as well as your past and memories, because the host's past and memories are kind of unknown to them. Well, I really liked that sort of consideration of how that affects who you are as a person. There was discussion about how, a person's mind and their makeup affected what he was able to get done that day. Certain people were very quick about making connections between things, or the next day, he would be in a person's mind that was very scattered and disjointed and had trouble focusing. And, that went to their physical bodies as well. There was only so much running around that he could do in a body that was more elderly or infirm due to injury. It's actually a pretty violent book as well. I do think the author went not a bit, a lot too far. There's one chapter where he's in the body of, I think it's like Rathencourt, so Ravencourt, something like that. And that person is very like heavily obese. And I think it would have been fine to mention it because that is like a relevant thing when it comes to literally running around a large estate trying to get information. But I would have preferred they just mentioned it and then said, okay, he's going to have to rely on his, street savvy, smart servant to get information for him, right? But the author really went way above, way above what would be considered normal to just talk about how fat this person was. So it was definitely not great in that sense. The ending, a lot of the reviews mentioned that the ending was not good for them. I wasn't impressed by the ending, but I didn't mind that much because the fun was in the journey, was in switching the different hosts that he had throughout it. So I didn't really actually even care what the reveal was or what the ending was. I thought it was fine, but it wasn't anything, mind-blowing or anything like that. So I enjoyed it. I think the name is really excellent. It's very reminiscent of The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is maybe another reason that I liked it. I like this sort of, I don't know, what is this, Art Deco styling, and the name of it and the concept and the fact that it was $2. So I think that's kind of all conspiring to create why I picked this up. But kind of a meh. It was like a 3-star book, I would say. This next one here is maybe the only smart book that I'll read this year. Reading is a hobby and something that I do for fun. So generally when I talk about books, almost all the time I'm gonna be talking about fiction. I really like sci-fi and fantasy, and then I'm trying to get into like romance, just because I feel like there's got to be some gems in there. And then I also like horror, mystery, thriller. I picked this up specifically for a couple reasons. Like a couple things came together to cause me to pick it up. I think one, this is an issue that's really, it's just a big ticket item to me. I'm very into like reproductive freedom for women, and obviously with what's happening in the United States, that's kind of always at stake. And I noticed that when I was scrolling social media, the algorithm was picking up on me pausing and reading stories about, reproductive access in the United States, so it was showing me more and more. It was really getting me down and stressing me out, and I absolutely think there's value in being educated about what's going on, but I don't want to be doom scrolling. I don't want to be depressed all the time. I don't think that serves anyone, including myself. And so I made I just made a quick decision when I was in a bookstore. It made me so happy to see this bright yellow color with a title that's clearly about abortion access, prominently displayed in a bookshop that also, bookstores have really been like a kind of a place of refuge recently, because they're always having displays about banned books and things like that. So it just, with everything going on and the sort of messaging that we get in the news and on social media lately, it felt so heartening to have this available for purchase still at this time, and I could have and hold in my hot little hands a book that is about abortion access and also includes like information about like home abortions, things like that, and how women have helped each other over time historically and cared for each other even when society did not. And so I don't know, that's why I picked it up. I wanted to read something long form and a little bit more in depth, and mute certain words on my social media without feeling badly about that. So I thought this book was very informative and also uplifting. And, I'm not necessarily saying that everyone should go out and read this one. I think that nonfiction is hard to recommend because the fields are so vast and everyone has their own interests. But if you need some encouragement to stop reading every depressing story on a certain topic that you see, sure, I absolutely encourage you to invest in something that's more long form that you can set aside and pick up purposefully at times. I read this with another silly, just probably some sort of silly fantasy book, and read this only like a chapter a day. So, I just kind of went through it slowly. I would say that I really liked in particular, the mention about herbs. So if you've followed me for tarot content in the past, maybe you're interested in like herbalism and such, or like herbal healing. They did mention various herbs that work as abortifacients. And what I found fascinating and like comforting about that was the ones they mentioned are found in every climate. They're found in every country and in every area of the world. And it really just had a message of, nature provides. It's not something that was only meant for someone who could climb some distant mountain or go to some far remote valley and, do something special to make some sort of tonic. Like it's been everywhere in every time period in history, in every place in the world. There's always something to help women get back to their regular cycle, and I found that to be so comforting. I don't have another word for that. But yeah, anyways, I valued reading this. I'm not really a nonfiction reader, but for those reasons, I did pick this up and finished it throughout December, but I finished it in January, so that's why I'm including it here. And it can't hurt. I think I might just leave this on my bookshelf forever so that whenever I pan by it, it's just sitting there brightly and it'll weed out the weak. That's how you know I'm not trying to grow this channel. Okay. All right, this is the next one that I read. There's actually a duology of this. So the first one is called Vicious. It's by V.E. Schwab, and this one is called Vengeful. And I thought Vicious was one of the best books that I read last year. It was just, it was so unique. It was so unique. It's almost like a superhero concept, I guess I would say, mixed with dark academia. And the plot in that book is these two medical students. Maybe they're like medical and philosophy students. I'm not really sure. But there's this known phenomena where some people in society gain superpowers, and they come up with a hypothesis about how they can make that happen through like near-death experiences, I believe. And so they concoct this plan to basically do an experiment on themselves, and it's so wonderful. It's almost like X-Men type superhero, where it's mixed in with the regular society. Maybe folks are tired of that. But, I still really enjoy the superhero genre when it's done really well. And I thought that Vicious was done wonderfully well. And I would say what I liked about that first book was really, I don't know, just these really unique character dynamics. There's these two main characters, Eli and Victor, and Victor meets Eli at college. They're roommates, and he is just so interested in Eli, like immediately. Uh, he thinks his ideas are clever, and he really enjoys working with him. Eli ends up getting a girlfriend. It does happen to be someone that Victor likes. And after that, Eli doesn't have as much time for Victor, and Victor feels like he's gotten boring and less frisky. And I just thought that was such an interesting idea to explore. I mean, maybe that's something simple, but I thought, have you encountered that before? I definitely have, especially in college. Like, your friends would get into a relationship and then suddenly they wouldn't have time for their other friends, and also their personality would kind of change, and not always for the better. Like, there's definitely good relationships out there, but, sometimes you're like, man, this person's boring now that they're in a relationship or something like that. But I thought that was a really, like, funny concept to explore, like interpersonally wise. And the plot kind of explodes from there. They go out in the world using their powers, sometimes in not great ways, and they're antagonists basically. Kind of like, I'm not really familiar with X-Men, but maybe who is it, Magneto and Charles Xavier? Are those the two characters I'm kind of thinking of? Maybe something like that. It's got that sort of dynamic, I think. And this is the follow-up to that. And I thought this was so interesting. I think V.E. Schwab is kind of hit or miss for people. So if you've read her other works and haven't liked them, I don't know if you would like this one, but I ate it up. I loved it. And the interesting thing here was it was almost more about the plot, because she makes both of the lead characters are at the point, like, once you get through this book, they're both unlikable. Victor does, I think in the first book, it was a little bit ago, so I'm trying to remember, but in the first book, he does aggressive things, but generally only in defense of himself, I believe. And he's also a good guy for the other people that he gathers to himself, like a found family, which is a dynamic that I also really like. And in this one, he takes protection way too far. He goes on the offensive, and there's really no defending what he does in this book. So at this point, Victor and Eli, both of them are not really sympathetic characters. So I couldn't really find myself rooting for either of them, but I enjoyed the plot of this one. There were just various problems that cropped up, and they had to resolve them, and I stayed hooked. I was really interested in how they were going to get to the bottom of the problems with Victor's powers. Like, he was running into some like, his wiring was a bit mixed up, if that makes sense, and he needed to find a solution, for which he chooses violence to solve it. But I did stay hooked on, like, how are they going to fix this problem. There's also another, like, large side plot that involves some new characters. There's a woman who has been mistreated by her husband and ends up gaining powers because of that. She is also not a likable character. She's not a character that you can root for. Maybe something of an anti-hero, because, like, you do root for her in the beginning, like, but she also takes it too far. She goes too far. But I was still interested in that. It's almost kind of like a mafia storyline there. I guess, maybe that's why reviews are kind of mixed. It depends on whether you end up enjoying the plot line of the story, because you can't continue rooting for the main characters. And for me, that wasn't a deal breaker. I was totally fine with that. Wherever V.E. Schwab was taking me, I was happily going. So I think I gave this one, another one, 5 stars. I'm a pretty lenient rater. I would say Vicious was like chef's kiss, top tier. but I still enjoyed hanging out with the characters too, and I am really curious, like, where things go from here. There is, I believe, a third book coming out. It's been really delayed. I think it's been expected for a long time, so who knows? There is, in a lot of ways, closure at the end of book one and book two. Like, they're the a lot of threads wrap up at the end of each. So, I'm okay waiting. I will wait. When the next one comes out, I will get it for sure. Gideon the Ninth, Gideon the Ninth. I loved this book. I loved this book. I think there's a really high bar to match if any book is going to beat this year. I was really impressed with this one. This is lesbian necromancers explore a haunted gothic palace in space. And look at this art. I think this art is so cool. I love the way she's dressed, really badass. You can see we've got some sword action going on here. She's wearing sunglasses. So this is set in space in the future. So they do reference some Earth concepts and jokes, I suppose. There isn't a lot of world building in the sense of like laying it out for the reader. They'll mention terms and not really explain them. They're not explaining the whole political setup of everything. So I think you have to go into the book somewhat willing to just wait to learn things later. If you're always like, wait, but what's that? Wait, but what's that? Just give up on it. Just give up on it. The important thing is you start off with Gideon on a planet that seems to be kind of, I was thinking of it almost like a monastery, like a religious order type thing, kind of tight-lipped and, not very fun. It's old, it's dusty, and she wants to leave. She's bored as shit. She hates it there. She wants to leave. She's been setting her escape plan. And at the end of her escape plan, you meet her antagonist, which is Harrow Hark, a person who is pretty much leading this religious colony, I suppose you could say. Either way, she's in a position of authority, and Gideon has been trying to get away for a long time. I would say that this is a true enemies to lovers. I really would, and the dynamics of it are just so good. Gideon's characterization, I was floored by it. I feel like sometimes you run into characters who are so vibrant and so alive and so interesting and so compelling. And I just think that Gideon was one of them. Just so unique. If I compared it to anything, I actually think Deadpool would be a good comparison. Just someone who is really irreverent, who is funny, who is in often horrible circumstances, but makes light of it and stays optimistic. I mean, there's times when she gets down for sure, but she's always planning her next escape. She's always planning her next moves. It is a space opera, I suppose you could say, and also a locked door mystery. What ends up happening is that, they're on their little religious colony on this planet, but two representatives are supposed to go to a centralized location to learn more about being promoted to a higher level position, right? And there's essentially some fakery going on because Gideon is not actually one of the people who's supposed to go, but due to various humorous circumstances, she's got to play the part and go, right? So they end up in this haunted gothic mansion, essentially, where there are laboratories with ongoing experiments in them, and they need to run the experiment successfully to learn a new concept and gain clues to additional experiments. And, whoever figures it out gets promoted is essentially the overarching concept. And I feel like this sounds crazy, but it's just so unique. It's so interesting. It kept me captivated the entire time. The language of the book is dense, I suppose. She likes using a unique vocabulary. For someone who's read a lot and is a strong reader, I thought those were just like fun Easter eggs. I see how it could give a weaker reader trouble, but if you're a strong reader, I would jump in confidently. And, if you do struggle keeping a lot of different concepts straight, I think one thing that might help is just keeping a list of the characters just until you get through the first part. And that's because I think there's, I don't know, 9 different houses who send 2 reps, right? So maybe you write down 6th house. This is such and such, right? That could be helpful for when they reference them offhand. It's everything fun and everything good. And there's more books in the series as well. I do think this one wraps up pretty tightly on its own. It's a complete story on its own. I have the next one here. Harrow the Ninth, and I'm really looking forward to reading this one. So I loved Gideon so much. I really can't overstate how much I loved her characterization. I'm trying to find words to explain it, but she's almost like I said, Deadpool, irreverent and determined to continue no matter, what's happening, almost kind of golden retriever-ish. I usually see that mentioned in like romances, but I guess that would actually really fit. Harrow is the emo. She is honestly like the emo, deadpan, serious girlfriend, and Gideon is the meathead, beefy protector, golden retriever type, who's who's smart. But her hero is definitely like the brainy emo girlfriend. And their relationship is, I think, so wonderfully done. It's never overstated that much. It's really slow burn all the way up through like the very end, really. And I highly recommend this to anyone who loves sci-fi and fantasy. This is just, it's extraordinary. It's definitely one of my best reads of the year for sure. And I cannot wait to read the rest. I will be here whenever they come out. Tamsin Muir, I love you. I love you. I trust everything you do. Okay, and the duality of man, just going from... I like to jump around. I like to switch genres when I read. I feel like it's a good palate cleanser, and then that way I don't get tired of anything ever. So this is actually, I think it's a YA romance, and I'm really moving away from YA books. I think when I started, I thought, oh, good rating on Goodreads mean good book, but not really. It doesn't really. If there's a really popular book on Book Talk or BookTube, or like a YA fantasy type, it can have really high ratings, but not really be something I'm interested in reading. This one, though, it does have high ratings, and it worked out great for me. I loved it. I thought it was sweet. I thought it was cute, and it didn't make me angry. And maybe that's kind of a weird thing to say, but I'm kind of gradually working my way into romances, and like, I don't know, I just feel like there's got to be something there, right? There's got to be romances out there that I would love. I'm just not very familiar with the genre, so I'm, dipping my toes in it, really, in a lot of ways. A lot of times when there's just something that irritates me too much to enjoy a romance, that's what I find. There's something irritating about the characters or about what they do, and then I end up just not enjoying the book. So sometimes I think it's safer to stick with other genres of books that just have a side plot of romance, because then even if I didn't enjoy the romance, I probably enjoyed the heist or the space adventure or whatever. And I could just be like, blah, whatever, didn't like the romance, but it's fine. Maybe that's it. Romance is maybe just a hard sell for me, I suppose. Anyways, this one is about a girl who played chess when she was younger, and she was very prolific, kind of like a child prodigy. And when her family fell on hard times, she started working full-time and kind of giving up on her own dreams of college and also of chess to support her family. And also she had some bad memories associated with it, having to do with her dad, which is revealed as you go through the book. But she ends up going to a charity match with one of her friends just to kind of create the numbers on the team so that they could compete, and ends up in a fluke facing off against someone who is top ranked in the world, and it makes a really good showing of it. And so her name is then everywhere. And she ends up going back into the chess scene and interacting with him again. I really liked the progression of the story. I thought it was sweet. I thought it was well done. I really liked both of the characters, and I was engaged in it from beginning to end. I know this is young adult, and so the themes were a lot about unused potential or lost opportunity, or when is it too late to go back and accomplish something that you think is maybe lost to you forever. Those types of themes do me psychic damage, even at my big age, almost 40. Those themes really affect me because I struggle with those things as well, because sometimes I ask, like, what am I doing with my life? So I enjoy explorations of that, even though they're a little bit painful for me. And so I liked it. I was there for it. A lot of reviews mentioned the pop culture references being cringy or annoying. I think there are so many things in romance that can be so cringy and make me kind of nauseous that some pop culture references that might be outdated pretty soon are the least of my concerns. So I liked this one. I enjoyed it. I think I rated it 5 stars, which is kind of high for a romance for me. But really, I liked it. There was nothing wrong with it. It was chill. It was cute. It had me smiling, and it just gave me the warm, fuzzy feelings that I do kind of want from romances, I think. So I'm interested in continuing the genre, with adult romances too. Of course, I might even try dark romances in the future. That could be fun. Who knows? The romance is such a toss-up of a genre, but maybe I'll discover what I like as I go along. Okay. Yeah, this book is so bad. This book is so bad. All right, let me explain to you how I even got to this point, because this is obviously it is not the first book in a series. It is, what is this, book number 4? Book number 5, if you count like a little novella or something like that. It's so bad. So this is the A Court of Thorn and Roses series. It's, the series about Fae stuff, fairyland, whatever. Everyone knows this series, right? And I would say there's not much value in reading this series. I would say the earlier ones are unintentionally funny, and so they can be read almost as a parody. Like, I don't know. There's just so many moments that I found like it's like a popcorn read. The earlier ones I really felt were like a popcorn read. They weren't good. They were bad. But there were just some moments that were so funny to think about, and I did kind of genuinely enjoy the world that was built. Like, I don't know, here's an example from the first book. There's this moment where, she's staying at a High Lord's mansion, and one day she goes, "Why is there no one here?" And he says, "Well, there's actually a bunch of people here, but I thought you might be unsettled by their appearance, because they're like humanoid, but not fully human. They might have characteristics of different animals or, plant life or whatever." And so he had glamored her so that she couldn't see them. And I'm sorry, but they didn't continue exploring that anymore. But God, the way I cackled, just like, imagine being in a room and you are just like letting it rip, or like picking your nose or something, and there's just some servant that you can't see in the corner just gagging. Like, I don't know, there's so many moments like that where it's just absolutely like off the wall, like just nonsense that I found to be so unintentionally humorous. So in some ways I did enjoy the earlier books. I did hate every character. I just, I didn't think they were admirable. I thought they made foolish choices. And so as much as I enjoyed it as a popcorn read, I wasn't attached to any of the characters. Except, like maybe like a few. Like, I like Lucian, I liked the Surreal, and I really liked, who I really liked was Nesta. Nesta was the only character I liked. She has like a scene early on in the very first book that's pretty hateable, but I think I liked her by the end of the first book. And then, whenever she would pop up in the other two, I liked her there as well. She's very straightforward and blunt, almost to the point of being rude. But I've always been a strong believer that just because you say things politely or with a smile doesn't mean that those things are nice to say. And just because you say things rudely or impolitely doesn't mean that they're wrong to say or that you were mean to say it that way. You know what I mean? So I really did like her as a character. And so I knew that this book was about her. And I also had seen reviews and plenty of spoilers, so I knew that I wasn't going to like how this book treated her. I knew it was going to be disrespectful. But I loved Nesta so much as a character that I did want to kind of read it and glean any little tidbits that I could enjoy. So, I definitely have hopes to continue reading in the future and finding other women characters that I can really like and admire and enjoy, especially if they're snippy and rude and mean. I really like that. There's just something about like feminine rage that I really want to explore in fiction, and women being impolite, women making space for themselves, women taking up space. Like obviously there's lines, but it's something that I want to see more of. So I am gonna say spoilers because this whole book was just like disrespectful to Nesta, and so I don't respect this book. I feel like everyone's read it if they were interested in it, and things like that, right? So first off, I like how the book starts. It starts off strong because it's just Nesta, and that's really how I felt going through it. We would get to a chapter where it's just Nesta doing her own things, having her own thoughts, or interacting with the friends that she made. I loved Gwen and Emery. I thought they were great. Her having female friendships, people who are her friends first and not like the inner court, the night court, or her sisters. Like, wonderful. More of that, please. So anytime where it was just a chapter with Nesta, I love that. And then Cashin would show up and I'd be like, that meme with the Britney Spears defender who's like, get away from her, leave her alone. Leave her alone. That's how I felt all the time. So it starts off strong, and I actually really liked how they demonstrated that she was having PTSD after her war experiences. So that's actually something I would like to see in more fantasy novels. Like, I feel like there's a lot of death and torture in fantasy, and a lot of times they get over it kind of quickly, or like there's just not as many side effects as I would kind of like to see because things are traumatic. Maybe I would like to see people dealing with their trauma. And so, SJM mentions that, Nesta has trouble bathing after her experience because she was made into a fae by being forcibly dunked underwater in a really traumatic experience. And so being in a tub full of water is very frightening for her. And then also when she hears the crackling of wood, it reminds her of like bone snapping, which takes her back to a certain moment in the war, in the battle, that really upsets her, of course. And I loved those details. I thought they were so interesting. She talks about how she has like this new power and also these really strong feelings, and to kind of suppress them, she relies on a couple coping mechanisms that aren't super healthy. She goes out drinking, she goes out dancing, and she brings men home at night. So honestly, at this point, I'm in love with her character. Like, I just think that's such a cool setup, yeah, I want to see this character grow. I want to see her figure out some healthy coping mechanisms. Like, at this starting point, it could go anywhere. Of course, it goes very badly. So I think I don't have really high expectations for how things have to be done. I'm not a fancy girl reader, okay? I would have been happy with something kind of basic. I mean, she could have gone with like the Eat, Pray, Love Prithian edition. You know what I mean? Like she could have gone over to Summer, ate some real food to soak up some of the alcohol, maybe got some sun on her face, maybe got her health back a little bit. She could have gone over to the Dawn Court and interacted with the library and the priests over there. They could have had the whole Valkyrie storyline over there, right? She could have made some friends of her own. She could have gone to Autumn and found love, okay? Yes, indeed. I do prefer Eris to Cashin. I prefer literally anyone to Cashin, actually. Anyone, literally anyone, okay? And, I don't care if that would have been derivative. They could have killed Baron, okay? That could have been the big bad of the story. You know what I mean? Like, and then we could have avoided the whole hunt for random ass objects and the fight that took like 5 pages and I fully didn't care about. So, there were options. None of them were taken. Okay. None of them were taken. Instead, the choices that were made in this book were just absolutely appalling. So what happens is that Cashin, who is her mate, drags her off to go see her family and the inner court, and they basically have an intervention, which I guess I can kind of understand, like a little bit, but I did not like any of it. First, they're super fucking rude to her. Like, don't invite people to dinner if you're going to be rude to them. And then they just go on to berate her for what she's doing. But none of it is different than what any of them do. So Faye live a really, really long time. Like, everyone that she's dealing with, she's like in her 20s. And everyone in this court is like, I don't know, 500 years old. They're fucking ancient. They have spent centuries drinking and whoring and going out to bars. Like, literally, Moore goes out to bars all the time. Like, she goes to Rita's. There's like a named bar that she goes to consistently all of the time to drink and dance. And I don't know. It's just insane to me. And they complain that she's been spending their money. But, like, she hasn't been given any money of her own, right? Like, she had her own money in the human lands. Like, where did that go? Was it taken? Like, at every point, I wanted an attorney to show up and be like, okay, y'all have violated these employment laws, these labor laws, these wage theft laws. Also, here's the divorce from Cashin. Like, I desperately wanted someone to just beat everyone's ass. I wanted Nesta to beat everyone's ass. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. SJM basically set up this whole book for her to be mistreated and then apologize about it at the end, which is, it's appalling. It's appalling. So, they complain about her spending money, even though it's pretty clear that they have unlimited amounts of funds, which they even mention. Feyre has 5 houses that she's been decorating like a good little trad wife. And she's like pregnant now, which is unusual because in previous books she had mentioned that she didn't want to have a kid real quick. She wanted to spend time learning her new powers, learning her new body, learning the country that she's now supposedly ruling, and enjoying her relationship with her brand new 500-year-old husband. So that's definitely an about face and really unnecessary, because in the first chapter, Nesta actually mentions using a contraceptive tea, which I appreciated that mention. I absolutely appreciated that women in the court have an herbal option to control pregnancy. Like, you saw the book I read earlier about abortion. Like, I fully support that. Anyways, I digress. I'm going to digress like 20 times while I'm talking about this. And it's just so frustrating. And the intervention just goes just goes absolutely insane. So instead of just being like, okay, we're cutting off, like, here's, you don't have unlimited credit. Maybe you have only this amount, but like, she should have her own money as well. Like, that would have made sense if she had her own money and then it was shown that she had run through all of it, maybe over a course of 10 years. Like, they could have made the time frame 10 years. I think that would have been more bearable than going to her after a year of PTSD and being like, well, you're not doing it right, it's time to lock you up. Like, it just was really jarring and appalling, which is a word I'm going to use like multiple times probably. So they could have mentioned that she ran out of her own money, Or they could have used this intervention to say, okay, like it's not unlimited anymore. You have this allowance, let's set you up with like a job or something. And then, if you want to spend all your money on that, you can, but like we just don't want this to go unchecked. We don't want to be enabling you or something like that. And it wasn't ever suggested that she was doing anything harmful. She wasn't hurting anyone. She was just literally drinking, dancing, and bringing men home. So, where they go with this next is just absolutely insane to me. So they give her two options. One is that she can be sent back to the human lands, where again, she has none of her own money, and the humans like kill Faye. So they were basically sending her to, it was basically a death sentence. And then they went, oh, but don't worry, the other option is you can get locked up in one of our remote estates. And this estate was so far away that she couldn't leave it. You had to take 10,000 steps to get to it. Otherwise you could like fly into it, which was fine for the night court because they could winnow, which is like a transportation spell, or they could fly there. But Nesta couldn't do either, because they also hadn't bothered helping her like learn how to use her powers unless it benefited them. Like they wanted her to do scrying to like find things, but they didn't show her anything useful, like a fire without crackling noises that made her think of breaking bones, or I don't know, making a shower so that she could bathe, or I don't know, winnowing so that she wouldn't feel trapped places, or whatever. They only wanted her to do things that were useful to them. So she's basically locked up in this house and forced to train physically. I think she could feel that they were, it put her in a position of danger to have so much power. It really felt like Rhysand was angry with her and controlling with her because she had the potential to be more powerful than him, and he was just like a giant, frightening man baby about it, honestly. So anyways, they lock her up in this house where she has no access to going out and drinking, dancing, or bringing home men, but there is one man in this place. Well, there's two actually, but like the one that she's expected to interact with and train with is a person who's like magically like mated to her and like sexually interested in her. So you do get Cashin's POV sometimes. He's always making kind of sexual remarks about like the size of her breasts and like how attracted he is to her and whatever, which is, it's uncomfortable. It's a conflict of interest. It's like forced proximity, but none of the fun aspects. Like it's just like jailer and jaily. Like I didn't get any good vibes from this. The way it was done, I feel like maybe that's why people liked it. Now that I think of it, they are thinking of it in a forced proximity manner. But I just found all of it to be so like odious. Is that how you say that word? Like repellent, just in the way that it was done. I can imagine sending someone to rehab or being like, hey, we're not going to support your drinking habit anymore, or asking them to go to therapy or something like that. You absolutely cannot just isolate someone in a remote family estate with someone who has ulterior motives. Like it just felt so, they have this really strong-willed woman and they want her to like get in line. Like they just want her to get in line. They want her to be friendly. They want everything that comes out of her mouth to be nice and make everyone happy and show up when she's supposed to and sleep with a man that she's supposed to sleep with instead of all these random people. And it was just so, it was so gross. It was so gross. And Nesta, I think, amid all of that, there are things that do work for her, and she does find things that she enjoys and likes. I really enjoyed the Valkyrie training. For example, the meditation. There are things that are jarring in the book. Like I feel like there's a lot of self-help and Pilates, yoga-esque concepts that are kind of just weakly tied in with these fantasy elements. I'm not necessarily against that. Like I even love the idea of gamifying life, of what if you work out and stretch in the morning because you think about an adventurous quest you're going to go on, even though it might just be a walk walk in the park or a hike or something like that. Like I love intertwining the realities of life with a more whimsical or fantastical view of existence. But I like it just because of everything else, I couldn't fully enjoy it. I couldn't fully sink into just having like a fun little romp like that. Like I mentioned before, if it had been Eat Pray Love style, I think I would have ate that up, you know? Like this woman who's really struggling after the war, rediscovering herself would have been so much fun. But instead, the way that she is corralled and beat down by these characters that we're like supposed to like for that, I didn't have any respect for that, you know? There was a time where it really came to a head for me. The whole pregnancy plotline. I mean, you saw that the book that I reviewed before on abortion. I have really strong feelings about reproductive freedom and access to reproductive care. And this book was really antithetical to that. Farah's pregnancy, there's a complication with it, and they resand and the rest of the night court know, and they choose not to tell her about it because they don't want to worry her or whatever. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That will never fly for me under any circumstance. Absolutely not. Nesta finds out and she informs Farah, and they are mad at her about that. They are mad that she has informed her sister about a health issue that affects her sister's well-being. And when that happens, Rhysand threatens to kill her, and Cashin, because he is, I don't think I mentioned before, Cashin is a 2-bit bootlicker. His head is so far up Rhysand's ass. He is a lackey. He is a dog, okay? Like he has a lot of insecurity because he's not a fancy boy. He doesn't know his parentage, I think, or something like that. Or maybe he just wasn't. I don't really know. I don't care about this man. I haven't paid attention. But like he's not a fancy boy, he doesn't have a fancy lineage, and because he knows Nesta was brought up well to do, he has like a lot of insecurity about that, and he always kind of tries to throw that in her face, even though she has never given him trouble about it. But you know what? And no, he's not good enough for Nesta. But anyways, after this, of course, even though she has nothing to be sorry for, she has nothing to apologize for, he drags her off and takes her off on a punishment hike. It's multiple days. He makes Nesta carry a really heavy pack. And the terrain is mountainous, it's very difficult, and Nesta is in a really bad headspace. Like, they've got her so beat down at this point that she really does feel like she's an awful person. She does feel like she did something wrong. And she is so worn out and weak, she literally faints and just like smashes her head against the ground because she's just like at rock bottom. He's like absolutely worn her out. And I could barely read this part because I thought it was so horrible. He like takes that opportunity to like swoop in and like reassure her and be like, you know, it's okay. You know that you're bad and wrong. You can apologize and you can do better. I was like, if I ever catch this fucking fictional man, I am gonna beat his ass. I really am. I hate this man. And it was so appalling. It was appalling. And I don't know about anyone else. I have a job where I'm fortunate enough that I can put on YouTube videos in the background. It can't be anything that I really want to focus on. So usually it has to be like, you know, true crime, or I actually do watch a lot. I'm interested in hiking and camping and like long distance hikes. So I do watch a lot of hiking gone wrong type videos as well. And there's kind of an overlap between that sometimes. And I would say there's 3 circumstances that do appear pretty often. So I was really set off by this hike. I'm telling you, I was like jaw dropped, because I've watched several videos, real life incidences where one, there are times where men take women on hikes to get them to a remote location for like an accidental death setup. Like that could be a husband that's trying to get rid of his wife, but there's also like kind of another type of incident where a man is just really arrogant about his skills and doesn't know the terrain or what they need for that location, and ends up getting his significant other in deep trouble, danger, or death because they are unprepared. And then there's like a third, and this is what the circumstances in this book reminded me of. There are times when a man will take a significant other hiking, specifically on because he knows that she does not enjoy hiking, or he knows that she does not have the skills for a particular difficulty of hike, like maybe not the physical fitness, or maybe the elevation is too much, or it's just a more advanced hike or something like that, and does it on purpose as like punishment or humiliation, just to like wear her down or make her miserable. And so when I read this, I was so disgusted. I was so disgusted. There can be no coming back for Cashin after that for me. I was appalled. As far as the rest of the book, it only gets worse when it comes to the pregnancy plot for that. Nesta is actually required to give up her powers. I mean, and this whole plot line is just fucking bonkers because the Fae can do anything. They can shapeshift. They can heal from any wounds. So you can't tell me that this pregnancy needed to be complicated. Like, it fucking didn't. Just have her heal up. Come up with some other thing than women dying in childbirth. It's so tired. I don't want to see it in fantasy. But anyways, we get to the end. She has to give up her power, and I guess they live happily ever after she gives up her power to like alter Farah's body to accommodate this pregnancy, and also her own, in case she wants to pop out Cashin's little babies and has the same problem. So I mean, that just absolutely sent me into orbit. I'm telling you, it pissed me off real bad, I gotta say, because this was the only way that she could fit into this family. This family unit was to give up her power, make sure she was no longer a threat to Rhysand's precious little man baby ego, and to be a good little trad wife ready to pop out babies and staying at home. No more drinking and dancing. There were moments that I liked about this book and moments that I'll keep in mind. I don't necessarily regret reading it. I loved the scene with Eris at the ball, which again, horrible things are in there. They ask her to seduce another man to get them on their side, which I don't know. I thought it was like a rude request. Like, I absolutely don't mind a plot line of seducing someone. Like, I think that can be powerful. I think it can be fun. I think it can be titillating and flirty. Okay, but not the way they did it. I did enjoy the actual dance. I enjoyed Eris's commentary. I didn't mind when he insulted Cashin because, like I said earlier, I do think he's a brute. I do think he's low level scum that crawls along the ground. I think he's pathetic. I think he's a piece of shit. I think he's like a hoorah, like caveman. Like, I hate that man. I guess I'm counting. I guess I should be making points, but I loved that dancing scene with Eris. It seemed like she really loved dancing. I want to see Nesta do things she enjoys, okay? And it's not fucking Cashin, okay? And I liked the scene with the Valkyries. Like I said, I just want to see Nesta do things that she likes and enjoys, and just rip out all the pages with the entire inner court, who I hated. There's another book coming after this in this series. I probably won't pick it up. I only picked up this one because I liked Nesta. If I do read anything by this author in the future, and that includes any of her other series, I'm petty enough, I'm going to buy it used. I don't want any money to go to her because, I mean, just the reproductive aspects in this were so bad that I'm going to be petty about it. I'm just going to buy her stuff used. Her stuff's popular. I can always find it used if I want it. I would also say that one thing this book did make me think about as well is that if you don't like to think about social realities, or if you don't like to think about politics, which is fair, I question why you would then choose your characters to have roles like High Lord, like, kings, like in charge of things. I don't know if authors know this, but you can choose to have your characters be an innkeeper, an adventurer at a guild, a knight, a thief. You know, they don't have to be in charge of things, because here's the danger of that. If you are not good at establishing the politics in the region or the country, that's one thing if your character is just subject to them, right? It's another thing if your character is responsible for them, right? So one of the reasons I dislike Feyre and Rhysand so much is not only because of their treatment of Nesta, but they're really inept rulers. So if they're in charge of things and I don't like how things are, and they're not making any efforts to fix them, that reflects negatively on them. So like, if you don't want your characters to look bad, like if you're trying to present them in a good light, you want them to be sympathetic and likable characters, why are you sitting there putting them in charge of things that are going poorly? And by that I just mean, you know, the whole thing where Valeris is their only one like good city that they've taken care of and protected. But even then, Nesta lived in a slum, so clearly there are people who are struggling and on the fringes, right? It's very clear that that's reality in Valeris, and they obviously weren't taking care of those people. Feyre actually, when she sent Nesta to the House of Wind, tore down that apartment complex. Like, what's going to happen to the other people that live there? And the other two main regions of Night Court, Illyria, and I don't know if it's called Hewn City or whatever. I zoned out a lot, I won't lie. They are just cesspits. And Rhysand and Feyre allow them to continue as such because they use the armies from those locations. They don't actually have their own army. They depend on like kissing the ass of the local rulers in Illyria and Hewn City, who are horrible and treat their constituents horribly, so that they can keep access to those armies. Like, I gotta say, it's real shit. It's really shit. It's so bad. So anyways, in summary, I really don't recommend this at all. I think I mentioned the reasons like why I picked it up. I don't think it's a requirement that every book be really brilliant. But I think it's perfectly fine to read kind of crummy fiction, as long as, you know, you can always analyze it. You can always ignore the bits you don't like. And enjoy your own thoughts about something, I suppose. So, all right. Well, this one was very long. I guess I had more than I thought I had to say about these books. But yeah, it's weird how the ones that I liked, I had less to say about the ones that I hated. But I don't know. I want to leave the ones that I enjoyed as something for others to discover and, like, you know, curl up with a good, enjoyable book and, like, you know, kick your feet at the cute and the funny parts. Whereas this one, let's just destroy it together, I guess. All right. Well, I will let you go. I hope you've enjoyed. I'll probably do another video like this at the end of February with what I've read this month. All right.